Good evening, folks. It's the Raleigh Water meeting. It's September 23rd. And the chairman, Roy Ricker, is absent. Tim Toomey and myself are here. The reason for this meeting is to reconsider articles for the town meeting. We felt $60,000 is excessive spending for paving. The chairman's grown up with asphalt. I've been around construction over 50 years. And this gentleman's a soil scientist. And I asked the superintendent where she got that number from, where it came from. She says, I came up with it. And he said, how'd you arrive at it? Well, previous jobs. So that's the story.
So on a similar thing on the articles, there was a request for $150,000 for electrical costs for the treatment plant. And I don't think she had the numbers. I asked her to justify it, so we wanted more details on it. On that particular vote last week, I abstained from voting. Roy and the chairman and the vice chair, Mr. Dalzell, voted for the additional articles for the town meeting. And you called this meeting, Stu, you had second thoughts about your vote, so I would feel more comfortable if we knew where the numbers came from on these articles. Those are the two incidences that if we weren't given satisfactory information of where the numbers came from, it just doesn't make sense to put the articles forward at the town meeting. So I'm gonna, see, does anybody have any comments about that?
Yeah, I have one comment. If it isn't 150,000, I mean, it appears that you do need electrical costs to cover the maintenance or the remainder of the year. What number would that be? I mean, you just can't go down as, are you saying go down to zero?
No, there were two numbers in our budget from last year, and correct me if I'm wrong, Karen. We had two numbers for electrical cost expenditures for the treatment plant and also for the whole department, including the wells. So there was much controversy, there was much research done back in April, and we felt that we had a pretty good figure we could base our budget on, and therefore we could have a better rate for the customers. So when she came in and discussed about 150,000, she just couldn't back it up. So
excuse me, she's met with the fiscal team several times, and I actually have the water department budget and the water treatment plant expenses that were prepared by the interim superintendent, where there was $240,000 allocated for electricity, and that was based upon the water treatment plant running for 12 hours. It was adjusted downward because no one could tell us any differently, and there was no support for that number, that the treatment plant...
67K, right? Not the 240.
Correct. That the treatment plant would only need to be run for 8 hours a day. And what we found from speaking with the new superintendent is basically the water treatment plant that the town of Raleigh has built with those Paul membranes needs to run. It needs to run at least 12 hours a day in order for it to function the way it's supposed to function. And I believe that that is where she came up with those numbers. That is what she told us at the fiscal team meeting.
yeah, well, we told her what we had discussed this in great detail with Weston Sampson and Paul Corporation back earlier this year, and this notion of having to run that thing for 12 hours a day as a necessity wasn't a necessity. They would prefer it not be shut down for any length of time exceeding 48 hours. So that doesn't.
Well, I believe that's turning it on and turning it off is what's causing problems with the quality of the water.
I don't think so. Is it? She been telling you that?
I think I heard that at one of your meetings.
Well,
I talked to Rob. I went up to the plant last week, and I asked him about the complaints about dirty water.
Yeah.
And what he basically told me was that the plant puts out water at a higher pressure than what the old well pumps did to get the water down to the tank. So turning off and on that system constantly is changing the pressure, which is, every time you change the pressure in those pipes, it stirs up sediment and creates problems. On top of that, because there are a number of leaks in the system, that exacerbates the problem even more, because when you change the pressure and it lowers, it lets dirt and silt in through the leaks, and when you pump it out, it pushes the dirt down the line. In addition, I think when we met and observed your meetings way back when, there was talk about the plant having to running 8 hours a day for 5 days a week, shutting down 2 days. And all throughout this process in the last year, we've been asking questions, trying to get information from Weston and Sampson. And we never got, I never saw her, I never saw that you people even got any good information other than word of mouth about how long this plant was going to run and how much it needed to be done or whatever. The superintendent has met with at your meeting a while back, she said she met with the light department superintendent to determine costs to run the plant in terms of hours and so on and so forth, and she's been in constant contact, as I understand it, with John Sikora, and basically the plant needs to run 12 hours a day, and they're running it 7 days a week. Once things get settled in, maybe you can be reduced, but in the meantime, you can't afford to, if it's gonna run that, unless this board's gonna vote to only run it 8 hours, you're gonna run out of money in that account.
We were told
If-
last,
If you have the money in it, the money is going from one part of your budget to the other. If you don't spend it, it'll revert at the end of the fiscal year back into that account again. So what it's given you is, in last year's budget, when we met at the selectmen and the finance committee and so on and so forth, people were picking numbers out of the air. Nobody had any idea what was going on. Since the new superintendent came in, at least you've got a couple of months worth of data now, and she's basing her estimates on costs and stuff on the data, on the actual data that's coming in. And we all agree that it's still a little bit iffy. But if we're gonna be iffy, we wanna be iffy on the plus side, not the short side, particularly when the money that, you've got the money already in the budget, all you're doing is transferring it from one account to another. Then if you don't need it all, wonderful, we'll put it back into the reserve fund or your excess fund. But why sit here and take a chance now, 2 months into the year, when the numbers indicate and the operation of that plant indicates that, you're gonna be in trouble.
we were told last March at a construction meeting here that plant only needed to run 8 hours a day, maybe 12 in July and August, by Weston and Sampson sitting right at this table.
I believe I was there, and, I don't know that that was accurate. I found that the story from them, because I sat in on quite a few water board meetings, I sat in on construction meetings, I was there on the DEP walkthrough, so I was actually, quite involved, and, I don't know for a fact that what they've told us was accurate, because we've asked the same kind of questions time and time again, and, the answers were either, we don't know, or, it's something one day, it's something else another day. I'm afraid that we have purchased a Cadillac, and we have to buy the parts for it, and we have to run it. It is what it is. I hate to say that.
I understand what you're saying, but the last thing I want to do to see the water rates increase. I believe she had it on our board here, wanted 2 crews, and when you need 4, why have 8? And
Well,
and
Well, I think
I'm
you
not
have
happy getting complaints. Somebody calls up with a complaint, they make an appointment to come, and they don't show up. I'm sick of it.
yeah, I gotta add a few things to this, okay?
Could I just respond to what Stu just said about
Sure you can.
this has nothing to do at this point with water rates.
I understand that.
This is money that you have in the budget. We're trying to run a plant, and everything we've been able to determine is this plant is probably a lot bigger than what we ever needed. Consequently, we gotta keep it running, and the type of plant it is, we need to keep it running. And once again, you know, err on the side, and I'm a cautious person, err on the side of caution that you have enough money to run this plant, and don't run out in the middle of the year, and we have to call a special meeting or whatever to appropriate more money. I'm not sure I see the reasoning behind all of a sudden you're changing your minds. Second of all, at this point, the selectmen have accepted the articles. They're gonna be on the warrant. And if you wanna go to town meeting and try to postpone them indefinitely at town meeting, you're certainly free to do that. But
Well, Dave,
we're supporting the articles that you submitted to us, and as far as I can see, that those are the ones that are gonna be on the warrant. We're meeting at the finance committee at 7 o'clock to justify those articles. And, you know, I hate to be argumentative, but
Okay.
they're gonna be there, and if you people at town meeting wanna get up and
I understand what
at
you're
town
saying.
meeting, that you're free to do that.
Well, I know we are, so.
I understand what you're saying. The plan has to run. We should be concentrating on that, not trying to spend $60,000 for paving around here and money spent. Don't even talk to the water commissioners, all the spending around here. She was asked to wash the truck, and the comment was, it's gonna be a lot muddier.
There's a lot of spending going on here, and
Too damn much.
there's been after operating for over, I think 70 years, suddenly our superintendent says that she can't talk to a couple of the, the board's members. And so there's a lot of changes going on here, or supposed changes. She hasn't approved, this board hasn't approved her not being able to talk to us, and she keeps mentioning that we can't talk to her. So the information that I've been trying to provide her, and she's not listening, is how much water does this town really need to meet the needs for the town. Right now, the plant was shut down at 3 o'clock today. So it doesn't make sense that, it has to be operating 12 hours a day. That plant was shut down at 3 o'clock.
I think it's a function of the number of operators who are trained that you have. And this goes back to the fact that you can't have one person.
I'm still talking,
They're alone.
Karen.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you
Yeah.
paused.
No. The plant and the town has a certain need for amount of water. Okay, so that's part of the equation for how long do you run the plant. The plant's been being shut down at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Furthermore, we've been operating with 2 wells. So the demand for the water is not demonstrated to support a staff on that plant for 12 hours a day. And in all the conversations we had with Paul Membrane Corporation, the only thing that they said that they would prefer that plant doesn't sit idle for more than 48 hours. Okay, so all that's being said, that plant could run for 8 hours, and we're meeting the demand for the town with running 2 wells out of the 3. So I don't know what the great demand is for the water to staff up a plant like that for more than 8 hours a day. And that was the original thought we would be, I think that maybe they're throwing numbers out. We don't know for sure. We don't know what the power consumption is. But we do know that there was money allocated to run that plant for at least 8 hours a day. So if there wasn't, this whole meeting was called, I believe, so we had second thoughts about the vote that we did to put forward those articles. Now, if the articles didn't pass, where was the money gonna come from to run the plant with the electric needs? That our superintendent is saying that she needs that plant to run for 12 hours a day. Where was that money supposed to come from?
The money's coming from your stabilization account. And we put money into that stabilization account from your free cash for the last 2 years because the costs of running the treatment plant were unknown. And it was an effort basically to shield the ratepayers from unknowns with regard to the cost of running that plant. Once again, I think it goes back to that this is the plant that we have, and the staffing is based on what the plant is. You know, if running it, I know what I've heard in meetings, and I believe that yes, you can run it for 8 hours, but that's not the optimal way to run it. Based on what Dave said with regard to, starting and stopping, I believe.
The pressure is always in the pipes, Dave, as far as the water quality. It's not taking in silt from outside. We don't know for sure if there's any leaks in that system at all. She's told us that there are leaks in that system. That's news to us. We never heard about that. We don't know if there's leaks in that system. Do you know that, did she say the leak?
I asked last week where the leaks were.
Yeah.
She couldn't tell me.
Well, you gotta do a program to go out and look for them. But you got no help, you're trying to get help. The plant needs to be staffed up there, so therefore, if people have complaints, they're not getting answered, which is exactly what she talked about before. We've been looking for a staffing plan for a long time. She put together a staffing plan because with the amount of help you have, and you're short of help anyway, we haven't been able to hire as many as you need. You're trying to run that plant and get that online. But at the same time, you got a distribution system that's hurting because the people who are working here need to be at the plant. And plus people have time off, and there's all kinds of issues. But you're sitting here pulling the thing apart. This was sold to the taxpayers based on the fact that we need a $12 million plant. Well then, Tim, you're sitting here telling me now that, we only need to run that for 8 hours, 40 hours a week. Well, that means we could have got away with maybe a $6 million plant.
That has nothing to do with it.
We're being told, that there's a big plant, it's able to put through millions of gallons of water, and yet you're saying, we can just shut it down, and most of the time it can be off and just turn it on once in a while. Well, that's not the way it's meant to be. The Paul system is not meant to operate that way. And
Nobody's suggesting that. Nobody suggested we should turn that thing off for more than 48 hours.
No, but I mean,
We only said that we only need so much water. And why run it more? What are we gonna run it?
well, then we should have got a smaller
Are we
plant
gonna
that
run,
didn't need to
are we
put
gonna
so
run it at a
much
lower
gallons
rate,
through it.
just so we can have more staff?
We're getting
down
all
there?
kinds of information that, as far as I'm concerned, we've got a superintendent who's finally given us paperwork, facts and figures based on something. The last superintendent, we spent the last 5 or 8 years getting nothing out of them. And the problem was that the board here tried to run the daily operation of the water system instead of the superintendent. Now you have a superintendent who feels, and whose job is to run the water system, and at this point, all I see from here is obstruction and not letting her run the system. I mean, give her 6 months, let her do what she needs to do for 6 months. The budget's set, she's not spending money that's not in the budget. The budget's set. In 6 months, if the system isn't better and things aren't better, then fine, jump all over
Sorry,
her. But
Dave.
don't give her a less than
Dave,
a
let me-
month and
let me
then
cut you off.
come in and say she's not doing a good job. Well, everybody's hounding her day in, day out about all kinds of things, except getting the plant online and getting people here.
I worked on the budget, Dave, and we did not approve any chairs or desks or new furniture down here in our budget. And she didn't even clear this thing up. So all this chairs and all this new furniture just appeared here. Didn't even talk to anybody. So maybe she talked to just Roy, I don't know.
Would you guys sign the bills?
We haven't seen them yet.
I'm not saying.
There's a lot of things that we're not too happy about, and one of them is that, you know, the comment that this board's been running this department, but it's not been running this department any more than any other department's run by a board. We're just
I would beg to
overseeing.
differ with you there.
Yeah, we're just overseeing this thing. We might have some comments, but the superintendent, for the most part, can take our comments, and obviously, she's not even listening to us at this point. Okay, so
Why would you say that? Excuse me.
every time I try to talk to her, she says, I can't talk to you. Okay, so.
And that's based on, I think she gave you an explanation of open meeting law and requirements. I mean, those aren't her rules. That's the way the open meeting laws of the Commonwealth of
I
Massachusetts
read the
work.
open meeting laws, Karen, and I read the policy that this town put forward, and it doesn't really specify whether she can talk to a board member or not.
She's not supposed to discuss business outside of a formal board meeting.
She deals with the chairman. I mean, any of these boards, the superintendent of schools goes to the chairman of the school committee. The superintendent, the town administrator basically deals through or with the permission of the chairman of the board of selectmen. You know, there's protocols to be met here, and you know, I don't want to get into all that stuff, but you got to give her a chance. I don't see that that this board has given her a chance to do anything. She comes highly qualified. She's got a great resume, a great background. She's familiar with water treatment systems and distribution systems and everything else. And I'm telling you, and Stu, you were on the board that interviewed the final candidates. If you lose this water superintendent, did you see anybody else out there that had any qualifications that wants to come to Raleigh? Raleigh has, at this point, a water system operation here has got a horrible reputation. Nobody wants to come here. I'm not sure why she even agreed to come here. But if you lose the superintendent, you're having trouble now getting workers to work here. In the last 10 years, how many workers have gone through the doors here for a year or 2 or 3 and gone off and left? I mean, we got a crisis here. And this board, all it seems to want to do is fight with the superintendent instead of give her a free rein to do what she needs to do within reason. In 6 months, if it isn't working, then fine. But you got to give her a chance. From day one, you haven't been. I see no cooperation here with this
That's
board.
not true. I have nothing to I haven't said anything to her. That's not true. I'm not against the plan or up the plan here. But she had nothing to back up wanting to spend $60,000 around for paving around here.
Well, fine. Once again, all I can say, Stu, is if she doesn't spend $60,000, then you got money to put back in the bank.
And she can take care of that town vehicle. How long would you have had a cruiser if you let dogs have accident in your cruiser all the time? And up in the office, what's gonna stop? And if she's not willing to come out at night, she wants Rob to be called an emergency, what's she need a vehicle for? Larry?
Just a couple of comments. The $150,000 was approved, or was presented by Mark Griffin, and he had an elaborate spreadsheet where he outlined exactly how those costs came up with, okay? It was like a 9-page, huge spreadsheet where he had the justification for everything. So that's not a new number. It's a number that the board has seen and is aware of. Whether they approve that figure, obviously not, because they went on with the $67K for what it would cost for the electrical. So the superintendent is using Mark Griffin's numbers, which were previously presented and that the board was aware of. The $60K paving may be excessive, but I don't really care about that. I care more about the water quality,
We all do.
which, no, you care for something else.
Excuse me, Larry. I
No,
care for the
I'm
water.
not through speaking.
That's all right. I care about the water quality. Don't accuse me of that.
I'm not accusing you of it. I'm just saying.
I'm against wasting money.
That the rates are secondary to the water quality. Now, the
Hey, but you can do your best to hold the
I'm
line.
not through talking,
Well.
I haven't yielded the floor. I'm not through talking.
Don't point your finger at me.
It's my pen. Now, she's come up with a lot of inputs. She has 20 years of experience. The Powell membrane filter system, that system is designed to run 24/7. It's not a start-stop operation. Okay? You go to the Powell membrane websites, you look at their figures and stuff like that, it's meant to run 24/7. Okay? Paul's gonna back down and say, well, yeah, you can maybe operate it at less than that. It's not good for the filters or for the system. Okay? You've got the money to run the thing for 12 hours. So it's not like you don't have the money, it's just you're reallocating it. The supervisor has a lot more experience in it. If you had Penachuk in here running your treatment plant, they would be running it probably 24/7. And you would take whatever cost it was. Now, Mary Beth is trying to be conservative and say, this is what you need. I can get along with the minimal staffing, and she's presented her plans to everyone and needs to go on with it, with the water quality being the primary objective. Okay? The rates are a secondary objective. Certainly it's under consideration, it's a high second. Her plans, I think, have taken that into consideration where these requests don't affect the rates. I think you should go along with what she has proposed, because any other water supervisor would come in and propose the same thing. This is not unique to Rowley, okay? This is not, if there's a membrane filter plant somewhere else, it would be staffed differently. This is the bare minimum staffing that's required to run the plant.
Okay, so,
I'm through, you can,
so Mr. Griffin was wrong when he figured out what the needs were for the town. He figured it out, so.
I would say that, you know, he had information from Weston and Sampson that wasn't entirely accurate.
He was a very brilliant man.
I mean, I have his budget right here.
Yeah, so there was only $67,000 in the electric.
Yes,
for the 8
So there wasn't a split out between the treatment plant and the rest of the department?
this includes, this case 1 says assumes plant runs 11 hours a day for 0.31 MGD average flow for a 12-hour shift. And case 2, which was the 240, case 2 assumes the plant runs 8-hour shift per day per historical flows with well 2 in automatic, I don't know, it's cut off. And it has a budget number of 67. You know, what I feel is that he had the number, and it was a big number, and the fiscal team pushed back on him. And, you know, he, instead of defending that number and saying, no, this needs to run, and you know, I don't know that he knew.
67 seems
Well,
very low when you
Exactly.
get 30
As I
motors.
recall, it was more
Oh,
like
30 motors up there.
350,000, he figured.
It was
And he
240.
whittled it back down to something based on what he felt that the plant should be operating.
And
Once again, this plant only operated 8 hours today, okay? It only operated out 8 hours, and on one well. We had 2 wells running. So
right.
there's not a necessity to have that plant running as much as you would like it to run. I don't think so, because we checked into that. So, I mean, she's been telling us that, and I wish she was here tonight, And she's supposed to be at these meetings, every meeting we have, she's supposed to be here.
I believe she had a previous commitment with the finance committee,
Yeah.
7 o'clock?
7 o'clock, yeah. But, I mean, the information that we had at the time, the information that we've gotten from Weston and Sampson has not been consistent. And that is a big part of the reason why, you
Where it
know,
hasn't been consistent, can you give us some specifics on what they've just built a plan, and there are, there is inherent in building a plan, some, questionable expenses that are gonna happen, so it happens like that.
well, do we have to run it 8 hours a day? Do we have to run it 12 hours a day? You know,
It's all based on
how many
demand.
people need to be there at this, you
Yeah,
know, at one
They
time?
should know at least the staffing.
I mean,
of the
how
plan.
hard did we have to pull teeth to get a staffing plan out of them to present to DEP? I mean, we're under a consent order and they have not been helping us along. I
Uh,
mean, we've been,
I don't agree with that, Karen. I think that the staffing plan is put together by the superintendent. And at the time, they put, the first staffing plan together was Mark Griffin. And this staffing plan that she's bringing forward is, I don't know what it's based on, because it's not based on consumption.
it doesn't, I mean,
Karen,
you,
Karen, can I
go ahead,
interrupt you?
please.
The staffing plan, which we've been screaming about for a long time, when DEP came in, it was based on everybody on staff from the superintendent on down being qualified to run that plan. So they okayed that. They needed like 5 bodies to okay the staffing plan. So therefore, the entire staffing plan for this department was allocated up to DEP as being running the plant. We don't have anybody left
They
to
ran off.
do the delivery of the water system. We all agreed that if you got two water workers working, and something happens out in the street, the plant can't run by itself, that you have to shut the plant down to get the workers out to fix a broken pipe or even go on a complaint or something. So it was obvious, and this is the reason why at the Board of Selectmen's meetings and stuff, we were screaming for a staffing plan, because we assumed that the current staff that you guys have had here for a number of years was not sufficient to maintain the delivery of water to everybody, as well as maintain a mandatory, at least 1 or 2 people at the plant. So you guys asked her for a staffing plan the first week she was here, and she delivered a staffing plan. Now, as part of this budget, she's asked for some additional money for a laborer's position, which I believe you guys wanted. Now you're gonna sit here and tell us that, well, everything she wants now is overspending and beyond, and everything in here is what I've heard basically at the meetings I've been to here is what you want. And I don't understand, it doesn't affect the rates. If there's too much money in this request, then you get it back at the end of the year. I mean, we're arguing over nothing, other than making sure that we got enough money to run the plant and provide safe and good water for the tax, for the
I
for the
agree with you,
ratepayers.
that's first priority. What I'm against, and I'll say it again, I'm just against the $60,000 for paving around here, that's all.
Well, if you want to argue against that, I mean, when I came here, Stu, 3 meetings ago or 4 meetings ago, you guys spent half the meeting on the hot top here, which to me was a waste of time. If you go out there now, the highway departments come in, they put some nice patch down, they got the place all smooth, there's no more potholes. I don't know if it cost the water department anything to have that done. It was done, she went down and got the work done, so it's safe. Now, therefore, instead of spending $10,000 just to do the front, what she's saying is, and Bob Murray at our meeting when we met with you guys said that this whole lot is based on fill, and if we're gonna do hot topping to make it last, then you need to make sure that it's got a good base and it's done correctly, otherwise it's gonna last 3 years and start falling apart again. I mean, if we're gonna do these things, we need to do them right.
Well,
And
that's
if that's
it.
gonna cost $60,000, you have the money, it isn't like we don't have the money, then do it and do it right. That's all. I mean, we can cut costs and nickel and dime, and in the end, we pay more.
There's
Let's
nothing
get it done
serious.
right, bid it out, get the best price we can, and get the work done in a manner that you or I would be proud if we were doing it at our
That's
house.
what we wanted to do out front, Dave. Dig this up, grade it properly, put down a nice base. We did not want to do the sides, that's all. Excuse me, the chair goes back too far.
Well, if you guys
Well,
don't-
that just means
You know, I'll
you don't
go along with Stu, I can understand if you don't want a hot top, then take the hot top money out, but you need the money for the
That's all.
personnel, you need the money, the $150,000 for the power, and I will vote on town meeting floor to approve the hot top, and if you don't wanna spend it, then don't, but, you know, let's move on here, you guys got some major issues to deal with, what, hung up on hot topping? I mean, come on, it's ridiculous, I'm sorry to say that, but I just,
Well, we all have the right to our own opinion.
oh, absolutely, no, I agree.
I agree, water's first priority, clean water.
I'm very, very concerned that we're gonna be led down a path of having too many staff members here to provide water when we don't need as much water as she's alluding to.
Well, then you built a plant you built a plant, as Larry said, to run 24/7.
We didn't do
If
that.
it means you shut the
We didn't
well
do
number
that.
2 down and
didn't
pump
do
more
that.
water through the plant, then that's what
We
you do.
built the plant to supply the water that would filter it for those offending problems we had for the water supply. We're still gonna produce the same amount of water. We were still planning on running that treatment plant like we were running wells 5 and 3. And we weren't gonna run them any more than we were doing anyway. The Slack well has always been well number 2. So there was no need, when we had Weston and Sampson prepare a plan for us to run that thing 24/7. It's just the type of plant, it could be run 24/7, but it doesn't have to be. Okay, and as far as there's a water break in town, you know, the state was, you know, and this is all well presented to us from the state. The state wants to make sure that we feel comfortable with the new plant, so they want it completely manned during its operational hours. Now, to take the operational hours and make it 12 hours a day, when we don't need that much water, seems like a little bit of a waste for me. I don't think it's really necessary to do that. I think you need to run the plant when you need the water, and you need to make safe water. So to staff up for a 12-hour shift when you only need an 8-hour shift, and of course this isn't a proven thing yet, but when you staff up like that, you're looking at temporary help until we get our hands around this. This is just too premature, again, to put an article forward for, you know, all the power needs, especially since we weren't presented any kind of backup, you know, that, you know, where she came up with this and $150,000 to run that, and she didn't give us any backup. She may have given it more backup downtown in the last several weeks that she's been down there, but she hasn't given us any. And this is her board right here. If she can't relay it to us in a meeting, why she needs to come up with an extra $150,000 to meet our demands, I don't know.
Well, I think she has, and Karen
Well, she
gave
didn't
you
do
the
it to me,
information
Jay.
right there with.
And she
I
didn't do
thought
it
she
to
did
Mr.
it in
Bell's
the joint
house.
meeting.
Yeah. you did.
Yeah, it was presented, the water board presented the 150,000 at the joint meeting, so, and again, that 150K goes back to Mark Griffin, where he came up with the numbers that he presented to the water board at a meeting, and the water board didn't necessarily vote on the issue, but at least by their assent were aware of it, and they chose the lower figure, the 8-hour figure.
Yeah.
So those numbers are not new. It's new to Mary Beth because she hasn't seen what Mark Griffin's backup is that he broke down. I believe there's 4 or 5 issues on that 150K where he came up with it.
I agree, that was rather complicated when she put that together, okay? But
But I mean,
the point
again,
was-
based upon what your usage might be, you know, you're looking for insurance here that you have enough money. It's not like you people are asking for additional money that has to come from the rate, okay? So it's like, she's anticipating 150K, okay? That gets allocated, if it's not spent, it goes back. It's basically a win-win situation that, you know, the money is there. If you don't spend it all, if you go out for the paving, because it's 60K or so, and get bids on the thing, you can determine then, you only want the front half done. You want only so much done. You get 3 bids, comes in well under 60K, the rest of the money goes back. You're safe.
May I address your staffing plan? Because right now, what the article here, the actual amount we calculated at today's fiscal team meeting, and the article was reduced from $50,000 to $24,074, which is taking money out of the overtime line and putting it into water department wages. And this would be to fund a currently vacant unfunded position of labor treatment operator. You have a primary operator that has worked 7 days straight for I don't know how many months. The fact is that you have people that will be dedicated to treatment. And what happens is that leaves your distribution side improperly staffed. That means that when people call and complain, people miss appointments because they've been working X number of days and they're working at the treatment plant and, they didn't get the procedure right. You need to have people dedicated to that distribution side so that when customers call Penachek can have people that can go out and do customer service calls, that can read the meters and attend to the distribution side. How much money have we not spent? About $37,000 on a contract with Weston and Sampson filling in for operators? And this is basically $24,000 to get us an extra person and bump the part-time operator from 15 to 16 hours? I mean, wouldn't you rather have someone who is consistently in the water department that you're paying, instead of, you have this one from Weston and Sampson, this one at, what do we pay these people, $60, $70 an hour? I mean, how long has it taken us to go through that $35,000? It's this fiscal year.
We're paying Weston and Sampson $80 an hour.
Absolutely.
If I recall correctly. This year is, I believe, the labor, which I sat here and heard you guys complain that you need someone permanent to cut grass, do, paint and do customer service and all that stuff for $18, $19 an hour. That's a big difference between them. So why wouldn't you go with it? And I say once again, even in the terms of the plant operation, we need to operate that plant. The plant needs to be operated 12 hours a day. We can't operate it 12 hours a day because what people have robbed is beat. He can't work anymore. He's going to make mistakes if he keeps working the hours. So why not get, with no effect on your rates, get the number of people in here you need, run the plant for the 12 hours. Now when we get to March, when you're putting your budget together for next year, if you determine that you don't have to run it that much, then next year's budget, you can reduce those hours. You're gonna need that extra person anyway. It's not like we're hiring 5 people here. We're hiring 1 person for the remainder of the fiscal year who's actually replacing an $80 an hour person you're paying from Weston and Sampson. What's the loss there? There isn't any loss. And to have the extra money for electricity, as Larry said and what these people said, you're not losing it. If you don't spend it, wonderful. We don't want you to spend it. We hope you can get by with the $67,000. But if you can't,
Why does it have to be in an article? Why can't you get a transfer out of?
Because that's the way the town budget system works, is we need to transfer from one budget line item to another.
We could do it next May too, couldn't we?
Yeah, but it doesn't do any good if you run out of
February.
March, and there's a big difference
You think
between
we're gonna run out of money in February?
67,000.
I don't know. I have
You don't know.
Yeah. Mary Beth seems to think that there's a possibility
All we're
that
doing,
that might happen.
we're just covering ourselves, and we're trying to support you guys to cover yourselves so that that doesn't become an issue in the spring. And once again, at the end of the year, if you don't need the money, it goes back into your budget. Nobody's taking it, nobody's spending it.
It goes into a line for treatment plant electricity. You know, it isn't going into your maintenance line. And Stu, your concern is with the water department customers. I mean, it's been very evident to me from watching meetings. I think the best thing that this board can do for the ratepayers is to get a water department that's running with safe water, running efficiently, and running so that when people have an issue, they get help. Things get fixed. I mean, I think that's the best thing you can do for your ratepayers. And, you know, I think you need to let the superintendent run the department and get the bugs out.
I understand exactly what you're saying, Karen. That's a beef of mine, where I get complaints that they make appointments and they no show. Folks are wasting their day waiting around for them, half the day.
I agree, that's totally unacceptable,
Exactly.
but I believe it's something that's been addressed, and, you know, we can apologize to people, but the bottom line is when you only have one guy, things fall through the cracks. You know, we're moving away from that. You know, Mary Beth, I feel, is moving the department, you know, back in the direction it needs to go. And I think it's really important that, you know, you guys give her a vote of confidence and, you know, stay up here, not down here in the day-to-day.
It would be nice if she communicated with us. Just for example, this new furniture around here, we knew nothing about it. That's not fair.
I understand that, you know, the money's gonna be not necessarily used, but, you know, I don't wanna, I wanna make my position firm here. I don't believe, and nothing has been demonstrated to me, why we have to run that 12 hours a day. And if the superintendent has some ideas, maybe she can express it to us, but then she's not feeling comfortable discussing anything with anybody but the chair.
Well,
And so we can't really conduct business or get information transferred in this department because she doesn't feel that we should be talking about anything unless we're at a meeting. So the information that this board tasked me to look at was what the consumption needs of this town. It has nothing to do with whether we're providing safe water or not safe water. We could turn that plant on for 24/7 if you want, but then we're gonna have to run it at such a low rate because we won't have any place to put the water. Do you understand that?
I would suggest, Kevin, that maybe it's time, we've been beating around between Weston and Sampson and Corporation, and Larry's looking at the website. Why don't we get someone from Paul Corporation and Weston and Sampson in and make a presentation that we can all listen to and come out with some information. I mean, all we're hearing is conflicting information, and that's all we've been hearing for months is conflicting information. Nothing's in writing. Everything's in he said, she said, and what we think. And I'm tired of listening to it. And I think you guys would be too.
Yeah.
And so what we're looking at here is let's give yourselves the amount of money you need to properly run this department. It's not going to affect the rates. You're going to get it back in India if you don't spend it. In the meantime, set aside a meeting. It'll be on television. And let's find out exactly where we stand with this plan. We still don't know. Well, we're still debating over how long the plan's going to run and all this other stuff. Well, let's get some hard and fast information from the people who built the plant. I mean, I would think they could tell us how many hours we need to run that. What if we're not running it 24/7? Does that mean that the filters, we get rid of them in 1 year instead of 3 years or 5 years? I'm led to believe that the more you turn that off and on, the more often we're going to be changing the filters, because when the filters aren't filtering water, they're hardening up to some degree, and it's going to create problems. So I'm tired of arguing about it, I just
Well,
don't see, I don't see the short-sightedness of this board, not
This-
to cover yourself when
this
it
board-
doesn't cost you anything.
This board tasked me to find out some certain areas about, information about what this town can produce, what that plant can treat, and things like that. And I'm not done with that investigation.
Fine.
But I think that we ought to do is, get me the information, but for some reason, she won't get me the information.
Go through your chair, and I'm sure you'll get it.
So, I did, and I'm still.
Give it to the chair, and the chair can deal with her, and then you
But I
can deal
think
with
at this
the public
point, I don't have time to wait. I think what we ought to do is we ought to get me to oversee something here. Maybe the board would be, happy if I, presented the questions to Weston and Sampson through the superintendent, and then have Weston and Sampson hire them out for a couple of $1,000 to have it, just to come up with what is the actual town need for consumption?
Well, we paid him, Tim, I don't know, I don't know how much Weston Sampson got out of the contract. We've been asking for all kinds of information from them for the last year, and I've been on the board of selectmen anyway.
Yeah.
And we're still here beaten to death, the same questions, the same answers that don't provide us answers. So now we have a superintendent who said, look, this is what I'm gonna do. If we need to change it down the road, we change it down the road, but at least I'm finally seeing someone with a plan of action, hard numbers and hard figures, that if we decide 2 months, 3 months, 4 months down the road that this isn't working out, then you can change the plan. But right now, we've had no plan other than rumors and innuendos, and we're all guessing here. And she has a plan, she's trying to implement it, she needs some extra help, everybody agrees you need help. You might need some extra money to make sure it runs, then give her the money. And it's budget time, and 6 months from now, we all look at this thing again and determine what do we need for next year. And we'll have finally some hard numbers and some hard usage, and you can, by then you'll have how many gallons you need to run the town, and how many from one well, how much, all this stuff would be determined. But we're under a time constraint here. We understand that. The town meetings are coming up in a month. We don't have a lot of time, as the fiscal team did, and the board of selectmen and the finance group. Yeah, we're throwing together whatever we can, because there's not a lot of time, and we've all been very busy. But we're not raising any additional money. Let's give her the support she needs. With the board of selectmen and the finance committee are trying to bend over backwards for you guys, then let's all support each other and see what she comes up with for plans, for figures, for numbers, and for budget. And then we can pick it apart when you got something in front of you. But right now, I'm very disappointed that we're sitting here tonight.
I'm
With
just
just 2 members of your board, number one. There should be 3 members.
Yeah.
And,
I'm too busy.
and you're
I'm too
trying to
busy
make
too.
decisions about how the 2 of you are gonna run the plant next year, and you're totally at odds with your superintendent, because you don't feel like she's giving you the numbers that you wanna hear. It may not be what you wanna hear, but the numbers are the numbers. With that, I'm going to the finance committee.
Well, I want to respond to that, Dave.
I don't even want it, Tim, I don't wanna hear it. I could care less
I got a motion.
at this point. I'm not gonna listen to it.
Well, you don't have to.
But why wouldn't your water superintendent, when the board tasked you with doing this, did you have a superintendent? It would seem like isn't that part of her job, is to forecast the water use? Isn't that one of the main jobs of the water superintendent?
Yeah, when you ask a question like, why do you need to run it for 12 hours? She says, that's what it needs to run. It needs to run for 12 hours. I know, I'm experienced. She didn't tell me, because the town needs more water, or that plant can produce so many gallons per minute and it won't meet the demand. She didn't say anything like that. What she said was that, it's gonna need that kind of, time to run it. And so, based on that, she just came up with her staffing plan, which was already done, by the way. The staffing plan was already done, and she didn't like it or whatever, but she just couldn't relay that to her board. Now, maybe she relayed it to the chairman, I don't know. Because things have changed here since she came on board. But I'm all for, safe water. But if we have to have more money for it, I want to be told, this is why we need to have more money for it. The figure that was thrown out for the paving, we already got pricing for the paving. It was $9 grand. and she came up with 60. So, you know, that's winging it.
In all fairness, the 9,500 was
For the
just for the circular driveway.
So only $9,000.
The other 50 was down each side.
And in all fairness, I believe that that came up at the joint meeting with the Board of Selectmen. You were talking about paving, and one of the Board of Selectmen said, hey, if you're gonna do it, you might as well do the whole thing. I mean, I think that was part of that joint meeting. I don't think that she came up with that on her own. And I don't recall there being any opposition to it at the Board of Selectmen meeting.
However, we found out afterwards, through Carmine, the state grants under chapter 90 to allow paving.
Not on private property, it's highway department money.
We were told, Carmine got it from Senator Tom, Bruce Hillis, a new law, that where there's employee parking. I'm just telling you what I was told.
Then I think that chapter 90 is under the jurisdiction of the highway surveyor, so I think perhaps, you know, that needs to be a discussion with him. I mean, if you can have money, and if you can get money from the state and you don't have to raise it, I mean, by all means.
No, I understand what you're saying,
Right.
but I'm just telling you what I was told.
Okay. Well, anyways, I know that she's been in communication with the Finance Committee. The Finance Committee supporting what she wants for articles. We're not comfortable with it because we don't think the money is that accurate. And but if it's only going to go into what is actually needed as a, so there's no way that by not passing these articles that there could be some transfer
No.
money out of one of the unforeseen accounts to cover an electric bill that we didn't see was going to be a problem.
Not for $100,000. You started the year with $50,000 in that account, and I believe you took money out of that to cover the balance of your Weston and Sampson contract? Was that 13,000, 10,000? So
I don't know.
I believe that's where that money came from. And this is money that is coming out of your stabilization account. It goes into the line for treatment plant expenses. At the end of the year, if you don't spend it, it goes back into your free cash, and then your free cash gets allocated back to stabilization. That's been the policy of the fiscal team for the last 2 years. And that's why we put that money in stabilization, was to take into account unforeseen things, because nobody has run that treatment plant before. And, you know, it's probably going to take a full year of 4 seasons. I mean, it may be fiscal year 17 before there's a good handle on exactly what it's going to cost to run that plant.
Oh, come on, Karen, it's not going to be that long. You could figure it out right now. There's an electric meter down there. You go down there, get the electric readings, and you figure out, you know, multiply it through how many days you're going to have to operate that plant, and there's your electric bill. As far as the staff is concerned, you know, it's all based on consumption, which I've been very,
It's not, I'm sorry.
But it's a consumption question. How much do we need, and where's the water coming from? And that hasn't been addressed. It's just, she's throwing out these numbers. We feel that we should have to be provided more information before she came up with these numbers. So if the Board of Selectmen and the Finance Committee support the articles, you know, that's what you're gonna do. You're gonna support those articles. And I guess there's no consequence of it. But is she, in the articles, I can't remember now, is she gonna propose to have one more staff member?
What she's asking for is a transfer from the overtime budget, because if you have more people, you'll have less overtime, of $24,074 for a full-time person, that would be a laborer, treatment operator, and also that includes the part-time person who was budgeted at 15 hours to go up to 16 hours, because that would be 2 full days. That's where the 24,000 comes from.
Okay.
And then you have that person available to cut grass, to read meters, to go on customer service. I mean, there definitely is a void of things not being done
Well,
around here.
I feel
because
more
lack of
comfortable
bodies.
about it since you've been explaining it, but we didn't get the explanation.
And I think also that you have a treatment plant that has, you talk about fixed costs and variable costs. Well, the fixed cost is you need to have X number of bodies in that plant at any point in time, whether it's one or two. And those people are not able to move over here to do distribution work
Why?
because they have to be at the treatment plant. You can't leave
They
the
have to be
treatment
at
plant.
the, they have to be at the treatment plant for the first, say, 60 days. But after that, once everything has been debugged and everything, this is what the state said, tell me.
I was there, and
Yeah, well, this is what the state said, but.
I was there.
Yeah.
I was walking around with the guy. And what I understand from the conversations that the fiscal team has had, that is not accurate. So I think as a board, you need to get clarification. And, you need to have it posted on your agenda, working through your chairman, and say, we need this. Because what you do is you ask your superintendent to come and prepare your budget. She comes. You question things. And if you don't get the answers at one meeting, then, it goes back on your agenda for inclusion at the next meeting, and you ask questions until you get the answers that are sufficient, that you have enough information to vote.
Karen, when you mentioned a laborer and an operator, I have no problem with that.
Right.
We'd like to be asked about it, that's all.
Right, yeah.
We'd like to be asked about it, and then it's gotta be demonstrated to us that that's why we need it. I'm sorry, I don't think that plant needs to be running 12 hours a day. Could be wrong, but at this point in time, there's no consumption data that this town requires. We've been through a drought in the last, say, 6 or 8 weeks. We've been running off of 2 wells, okay, meeting the supplies to the town. And we've been operating for 8 hours a day. Why do we need to run that plant 12 hours a day?
Well,
And I'm sorry, but the Paul company, when I asked them the question, they said, it's whatever you need. But you shouldn't leave that thing unattended any more than 48 hours, or not running within 48 hours, because that's when things could develop.
well, and I think you
Okay.
have.
So 48 hours is 2 days.
But I think you need to find out what is the optimal running. That's $1 million piece of machinery. I think you need to find out what is the optimal situation under which that's run. Because those membranes, they have a life expectancy. And, you have this state-of-the-art Paul system. I think you need to know what are the conditions, the optimal conditions under which this is run. And it's not totally a function of water demand. I think that's a question
Well, I mean,
that you need to have answered as a board.
Well, we
and-
already had it answered, and if that plant could run unattended with this SCADA system. And so the guys could actually do sampling at other wells, or intend to a hydrant replacement, so that's already been thought of.
That's in the future. That's apparently quite far in the future. And I
Oh,
think,
I don't think so, Karen. I think that this thing is ready to go, it's producing clean water, and there's been very few bugs in it. So I don't know where are you getting that this thing is a labor-intensive, monstrosity that needs, 2 or 3 times more people than it actually needs.
I've been at fiscal team meetings
Karen, I
with the
don't
water superintendent.
Okay, so that's water superintendent and I don't, and maybe this board doesn't have the same feelings on it.
Karen,
She just got here.
I don't pretend to know anything about the treatment plant. I'm just up there this spring for inspections. What I'm going by is what the engineer, Western Sampson, told us at a construction meeting. Maybe, I don't know how long it has to run, maybe it is 12 hours.
Right, and was that the same meeting when they told us, we didn't have a perfect plan either? I was there with you, Stu. I heard that. I think, there's no problem in asking for clarification so everybody's on the same page, so everybody can work together and find out once and for all, what are the optimal conditions under which this treatment plant runs, and, what is the ideal staffing plan? I seem to remember us sitting around in the selectman's office waiting because it was the last day to get the staffing plan into DEP, and it was a rush job. We asked for information more than once, and I think Mary Beth's plan, at least she can say, well, this person does this person does that. I have much higher degree of confidence in speaking with her than I have in, speaking with pretty much anyone over the 2 years that I've been working with the water department.
Okay. Okay, so how do we want to handle this, reconsider the articles? Do you want to go one by one on it, Stu, to say whether we would want to go put forward the 60 grand, or do you want to just,
I'm against the 60,000 for paving.
okay, so that article,
As far as the power goes, we don't know any more about it. There are 30 motors up there roughly. It's a wait and see as far as I'm concerned. See how it goes.
well,
You get a few electric bills in.
by not voting on the 60,000, they're not gonna be able to do the paving project at this point. Is that right, Karen?
I believe that it's on the warrant, and I believe that the Board of Water Commissioners could, at the special town meeting, attempt to pull it from the warrant. But ultimately, the selectmen control the warrant, so we'll have to see what happens there. I mean, if you feel that strongly, then, you can get up at town meeting and say, we don't support this.
As far as electric goes, Tim, we do not know what the bills will be.
Okay. And what were the other articles?
50,000 for chemicals, 21,000 for the purchase of Paul filters, and 24,000 for interim maintenance of the Paul filters.
I believe that 21,000, that was put away, so in 10 years you'd have the money. for new
Right, but I
filters.
believe what she wants to do is actually purchase filters each year. So if you have, one that you need to replace in year 6, you got the filter there, and you could replace it instead of trying to, scramble money together.
Right.
And get it transferred from stabilization. And then the 24,000 has to do with the warranty from Paul runs out in April. So between April and July 1st, if something should happen where Paul would have to come out, I believe it's about $12,000 for a trip for them to come out to service, and then
Okay.
it would be a maintenance contract on a fiscal basis.
So why do we need that now? It's not a guarantee, right? Till April?
Well, because, if April 29th, when your system needs to be serviced and there's no money because you haven't had your town meeting yet, you're setting this aside, you're not spending it. It's there, earmarked if something happens.
Tim, we definitely need to do that.
I mean, the
For
fiscal
maintenance.
team and the finance committee and the board of selectmen have been quite adamant that, your free cash has been going into stabilization.
Yeah.
So it isn't, like you're gonna have free cash and it's gonna disappear. I mean, that's been the policy, is that if you don't spend it, it goes back into stabilization for, capital needs, unforeseen expenses, whatever. So I really don't think that by approving these things, you're losing track of any of this money. Because it will find its way back into stabilization, and there's approximately $850,000 in stabilization.
Yeah, okay. So we should probably not take any action, Stu, I think. I think just let it ride, I guess. I don't know, what is your feelings?
think, we should go like the only thing I want that I wanna do away with, it's a 60,000, but, they have to bring it up to town.
Well, we can, they've already passed it. When did they pass it, last night?
Yeah.
The articles?
The articles, I think, were, I mean, the warrant closed yesterday.
Oh.
You approved it at your last meeting,
Yeah,
and then the warrant closed, I think, at 4 o'clock yesterday.
Yeah.
okay. Okay, so we can, maybe, if we don't have any stronger feelings, we can go to the town meeting and not support it or support it. Okay. I would like to have on the agenda for the next meeting, we need a vote on this. I want a motion on this. The next meeting on Tuesday is address the following matter. To review,
Excuse me, Mr. Toomey, this is not posted on your agenda, so I would caution
Yeah.
against bringing up any topics.
oh, don't vote on it, but just, I want to put this on the agenda. To review, discuss, and further clarify and/or amend the agreement relative to the use to the town truck assigned to Mary Beth Weisner, Water Superintendent. So I think that, I think we need a motion on this, Karen, to see if I can put, we're not gonna decide on it now. We're gonna put it on the agenda for the next
You shouldn't even
meeting.
discuss it. You shouldn't even speak of it.
I disagree. I disagree.
It's not posted on your agenda.
I wanna post it on the agenda for the next meeting.
Then that
So
would
we
be
can talk
something,
about that.
that would be something that the chair would put on the agenda.
Write it down before Thursday when you post the meeting.
Okay.
I just want to touch that clean.
Okay.
Light department, the police department, the highway department, the trucks were always clean.
Well, they have more people, Stu.
Yeah,
You know,
Okay.
unfortunately, there's only so many hours in the day.
any old business still?
No, I hate to come down so hard, I mean, I don't like to be accused of not having first quality water and highest priority.
I don't think that, I don't believe that the people think that you don't care
Because
about
that's,
this quality
that's,
water.
but I'm also thinking of their, checkbooks. All right, I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
I'll second that.
All in favor, aye.
Aye.